Everyone has departed who is heading to the other session, so we shall begin. First of all, a huge thank you to James Taylor and Justin Spooner for joining us today to share their in-depth knowledge of online education and marketing. James's career history began in music, where he had a extremely successful career before he moved to Silicon Valley, where he's been busy launching edtech startups. He's recently returned to the UK and is currently CEO of ICMP Online. Justin Spooner is I'm going to get this right, because I'm sorry, the name badge is wrong. Justin Spooner is strategic consultant at FutureLearn, and he'll be sharing with you some of his online marketing experience. But I will hand over to James and Justin. Thank you.
I'm coming up first, aren't I? Yeah, it's going to be me. Hello, everyone. What a talk to follow. Wouldn't have been what I planned. I've got thousands of slides, but I actually am probably not going to show them all because that would be silly, and I think we'd just glaze over. I probably won't tell you so much about the marketing. I'm going to let James tell you about the marketing. I think I've got a perverse lack of understanding, actually, of marketing. The intriguing title about a strategic consultant for FutureLearn, I'll just give you the potted history of that. So FutureLearn is a MOOC platform. It's entirely owned and was set up by the Open University, but it was floated off as a separate company away from the Open University. And this happened about 3 years ago. And the job was given to my boss, Simon Nelson, who's the CEO of FutureLearn, to work out what FutureLearn was and should be and have it built in a terrible hurry. That was the main plan. It was about sort of December of, now what would that have been, 2012, I'm guessing. And in 2013, Simon came to me and my business partner, Matthew Shorter, and said, I really, really need some help getting this thing set up. So we joined in the endeavour, and we rapidly tried to build a vision for FutureLearn, which helped to differentiate it from the other, mostly, let's say, US MOOC platforms, try and work out what was specific about it, what was different about it, what was going to be special about the FutureLearn platform. And we went, having devised a vision, very quickly into a prototyping phase, which lasted a far too short a time. That was about 2 months of prototyping, which, if anyone's only done any prototyping, is just too short. And then, luckily, the prototype was roughly the sort of thing that we should build, so we rapidly put a team together. Simultaneously to the team being put together, we were out there getting our first set of academic partners who were going to be making the courses. At one point, I was leading a workshop which I will literally never forget for as long as I live, because I nearly had a full mutiny on my hands, where I was trying to, in effect, consult with all of our higher education partners about what they thought FutureLearn should be. But they wanted us to tell them what FutureLearn was supposed to be. So we kind of had this kind of crazy conversation where we were saying, well, we want to know what you think it should be. And they're saying, you should be telling us now what it is, because we're making courses for it in a minute. And it's like, yeah, I can see this is all a little bit tense. And so we had this fantastic moment. You've got to imagine there was 25 universities, many of whom had never made a MOOC, a massively open online course, before. This whole venture was a bit of a surprise to them. They weren't sure whether to trust the Open University in all of this. They weren't sure whether sitting in a room with all of their competitors was as much fun as they thought it might be. But the funny thing is, they began to trust us bit by bit, and they started building those courses. And 9 months after we got on board and were told that this thing had to exist, it did exist. So in September 2013, there was the FutureLearn platform with its first courses on it. And one of the first ever courses was a course by UEA on the power of brands, which in itself was a collaboration with the digital agency Wolf Ollins. So what we decided for our first course ever to do was the most difficult and complicated collaboration we could think of, because we thought that would be a good test case. And obviously when we started, we had no learners, really no marketing at all. It would be good to hear about how James did this, because we didn't do it at all. We had very, very minimal marketing. We launched to a sort of half-empty room in the British Library, and off we went. And what was interesting about that was, where we are now, to sort of speed things along, is we're about 2 years of it being out in the world. We now have around 2.5 million learners learning on the platform, who between them have done over 4 million courses. We have about 60 to 70 academic partners, and we have about another 40 other kind of partners, what we call specialist organisations and centres of excellence, that have joined into this endeavour. And so for us, you can imagine going from no learners to 2 million learners in that period of time, the thing that's probably for me the most gratifying is people are enjoying the experience. They're coming back. The fact that roughly what we're seeing is everyone doing an average of 2 courses tells us that first course didn't put them off. So that's a really good stat, So that's a kind of rapid overview. So going back to what's supposed to be different about FutureLearn? Well, the first thing I'll say, and following on from the last talk, is we realised early on that we were not going to be a simulation of the higher education experience. Although higher education institutions would play a significant role in creating those courses, this isn't going to be the replacement of the degree. Now, you people in this room, you will have witnessed the hype cycle that there has been around MOOCs. Do you remember the time when a couple of years ago it was like, the MOOCs are coming, it's going to be absolutely massive, it's probably the end of universities actually. I suspect there won't be universities in 10 years and everyone will just be learning online, and the degrees, there'll just be these amazing new modular kinds of degrees that you do online. And the very same people, I think, that were committed to that hype, yeah, that's so exciting, a year later are like, it's not happened, don't like it. Actually, MOOCs are pointless. All that hype about how they're going to replace universities, that's turned out to be nothing. They're just a divergence. Now, the thing is, anyone that's actually in this business, so Coursera and edX and FutureLearn and iVersity and others, we're in it for the long term, right? It's going to take ages for this to become mainstream. It's going to take ages for this to become the norm. It's going to take ages for us to work out how people value these courses and what they mean to employers and what they mean to learners. It's going to take ages to work out how LinkedIn plays a role in all of this. It's going to take ages to work out how we might bring the further education sector into play rather than just the higher education sector. I'm interested still in how we might bring schools into a relationship with this. So, going back to where we were there, that you might encounter a platform that has courses that are aimed at people right from 14 through to 84, and it works. It seamlessly and coherently works. This isn't going to be something that anyone invents and gets right in a minute or two. It's going to take us ages. But the one thing I can absolutely say, hype or not, is we are determinedly going to try and make this work. And the reason why is because it's about delivering educational opportunities to as many people as we possibly can wherever they are in the world. And I don't think anyone would doubt that that's a good thing to try and pull off. So what we basically focused on was that we wanted high quality content. We don't need to worry about what a MOOC is. Does anyone not know what a MOOC is? I've started this talk from a sort of back to front perspective if that's the case. No one would want to put up their hand to a question that ridiculous, I just realised. Let's move on. Thomas Friedman, no need to even have this slide. An important person has said something positive about what MOOCs could be, okay? But we don't need to worry about that too much. That's the potted history. Effectively, there was this sort of rush of platforms led by the US and backed by a bunch of venture capital, many of which, just like us, are trying to work out how to become sustainable business models right now. And a lot of that, what's good about that is there's an awful lot of experimentation going on to try and work out how we can balance the book, so to speak. One of the things that we did straight away to try and differentiate ourselves out from Coursera is, when you use that advantage of not being first. When Coursera built their platform, they did not build it mobile first. They were a bunch of engineers who built that platform, and they made a really solid, good sort of content management system that delivered well to the sort of standard web. But they didn't really think about mobile too much. So coming a little bit later, we were like, oh, cool. We'll design for the little device first, and then we'll see if we can make it work on the bigger devices. And that saved us huge amounts of pain, as you can imagine. Coursera and the others are re-engineering their platforms continuously to make them work for mobile. We wanted the whole thing to be as simple and as elegant as could possibly be, to the point where almost when you go to FutureLearn, you sort of wonder what's going on, because it's like a big white page with some purple buttons on, and that's all there is. But it's sort of super simple structures, and the whole idea is it sort of compels the user to think about bite-sized learning, which in turn helps them think about how to fit learning into their lives. That's what we want, learning that fits into people's lives. The whole pedagogy rests on social learning. We've basically convinced ourselves that what FutureLearn needed to be was a platform where people learnt together. So I don't know if any of you have done a course. In fact, has anyone here done a Coursera course? Okay. edX? It's quite useful data capture this. Okay, more Coursera. Has anyone done a FutureLearn course? Good Lord, we're in the edX territory there. Thank you. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but with edX and with Coursera, certainly at the start, all the social activity happens somewhere else, not around the actual content, the learning content itself. And what that means is that you have a very fractured conversation. So although there might be, let's say, 100,000 people doing a course, it feels like one person doing a course, you, on your own. That's a weird thing to do, to gather 100 people together to make them feel like they're one person doing a course. And in a way, it was the old broadcast model that was leading that. It was like, it's the most efficient thing to do to create the experience of intimacy of one person learning, even though there's 100,000 of you. That's the classic BBC Radio 4 in your ear intimacy thing. We decided to turn that on its head and go for, it's a jamboree, it's a party, it's a big old social learning experience. And so the whole kind of the tropes around following and filtering content by the people that you want to, a part of your social network, that's very much built into to FutureLearn. And I won't linger on the underpinning pedagogy. But what you can see there is the social commentary. So you actually get that built in to the content itself. It sits along one side. We focused on storytelling. It's slightly unfortunate, but about half the people that work at FutureLearn used to work at the BBC, including me. And what that means is we've really, really focused on storytelling. Now, when we started in fact, it was on one of those workshops where we talked about storytelling, a lot of our academic colleagues were a bit like, yeah, this is very whimsical, guys. Don't start using storytelling words like with us. We know how to teach. But what we meant by that was, when you offer a course online that you haven't paid for and that you could stop doing just like that, you need the most compelling story you could possibly find in order to convince them to spend one more second with you. Which is totally different to, there are a bunch of people trapped in a room who are listening to you, either in a bored state or whatever, who know that they have to acquire that knowledge from you in order that they can regurgitate it at a later point, in order that they can get their assessment points, in order that they can finish this damn course and get out into the world, right? It's a really, really different experience. And actually, I have to say, the universities totally got it, and I think they really enjoy it, the challenge of trying to find the best story. So we've got practical experiments, interactive content, super high quality content, and we use a formative assessment. So again, I wouldn't say this is about not simulating the higher education experience, but what we have realised is we're not about working out sort of metrics of assessment. What we're about is every single time we assess a learner, it's for the learner, not for us. So it's like the learner finding out what they know and what they don't know and what they need to go back to understand further in order to know it. So all of our assessments that we have on FutureLearn are formative in a way that helps the learner learn and helps them stick and understand, stick to the platform, stick to the course, feel confident, celebrate their progress. So I'm going to just finish on this before you come and tell us this. So, as I said, we've got minimal marketing, but I think what's happened that's great is when people have used FutureLearn, they've enjoyed it. And that sense of enjoyment, that sense of holistic engagement with an experience is absolutely central and key to the experience. This is an intriguing piece of feedback because one of the things that we were able to pull off was a really rapid course creation on Ebola. And one of the stories that we got back was the Médecins Sans Frontières team, who, in this particular case, basically used one device to do the course, but there were about 40 or 50 of them. And the reason that how we found out about it was they emailed us saying, could we all have our statements of participation? It might look a bit weird because it might look like just one of us did it, but could we have 50? These were all our names, and of course we did. But I think what it gave you a sense of is it's that combination of a pleasurable experience, a really practical piece of learning, in-time learning, and really convenient, a sort of convenient experience that fits into people's lives. Is what FutureLearn's about. And I think I'll end there and I'll let James tell us a bit about, if you've got something good, how do you then get people's eyeballs to it?
We're not affiliated, our companies aren't affiliated in any way, they really understand the content creation bit. If you think about there's basically two things that are kind of going on in online courses. One is, actually in relation to any type of creativity, one is the kind of creative thing, like make something great, and then the other thing is tell people about it. That's, when you basically boil it down, that's what it's about. So Justin's spoken to you about how to create something great. So I'm going to talk to you about, you've got that great thing, how do you then market and sell that great thing? So as someone said earlier, my background is in completely unrelated to education, is in the music industry. I managed a lot of pop artists, people like Deacon Blue, and worked with artists like Jeff Beck. So I come from working with people with great brands who are very good at what they do and helping them monetize that. Essentially what I've been doing for the past 5 years, I was taken over to Silicon Valley about 5 years ago. I was headhunted to go there with one of the founders of AOL. And his question was, how can you teach people at scale? And so I went over there, and I've just recently moved back here to the UK after building lots of online schools, online courses with a team over there. So this challenge of actually how you communicate this great thing you've got, this great course that you've created. One of the things that I kind of saw, and this kind of goes back to me thinking about like kind of marketing 101 is, no one likes to be sold to, but we like to buy. So just thinking about the kind of basics of that, and what I saw all the time is someone would create an online course, whether it was an institution or brand, and it was like, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. That's the conversation. And that's like it's like the 19-year-old kid that goes into a nightclub and walks up straight up to the girl and says, okay, let's start dating. It just feels icky, it feels weird. And so you should think about your marketing just like you think about your relationships. It's no different. We're just using online as a tool to do that. So here in London, what I've done is I've assembled a great team. Any online courses, online education, has these three components of it. It has the technology, which, we build great technology. It has the content, which we've also heard. And then it has the marketing, the three things. And between myself and my team, we have a mixture of people who are technologists, who are content creators, who really understand content at a very deep level. And then we have people like myself who come more from the marketing side. So the thing that's most fascinating about coming back to London after being away for a while is how the attitudes to EdTech, the area that I work in, are completely different. We're basically, in the UK here, when it comes to venture capital and understanding this market, we're 12 months behind where California are, which is good in a way because you have a space where companies like FutureLearn can kind of do stuff that's a bit more experimental and a bit more kind of fun. So you've probably seen, I'm speaking to a room of educationalists, so I'm not going to go through these slides, but online education is just booming. And the interesting thing for me is how that's getting blended with more kind of traditional brick and mortar learning. So we're seeing very fast adoption in a lot of new countries. One of the previous companies I consulted for make an LMS for very low income countries. And we're seeing rapid expansion of online courses. So if we talk about marketing and we think about if you have your online course, I want to give you some kind of tactical stuff so you can take away. I don't want it just to be like big, high kind of strategy stuff. I actually want you to have something you can take away and think about for your own organizations. So whenever we think about marketing, we're thinking about the life cycle of that customer. So as I spoke about earlier, this idea of like just going to someone, if you create an online course and saying, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, all you're doing there is just trying to convert sales. You're not nurturing the prospect in any way. You're not getting to know them, getting to understand what are their likes, trying to segment them up, try and work out what they're interested in. You're not giving them any value in advance. You're basically just saying, give me money. So whenever we create an online course, we think a lot about splintering, about how we can take that online course, splinter that up into having lots of different offers within that to gradually build someone into being a buyer and then a multi-buyer. So we take people right from this whole kind of this life cycle. Now, boring boffin stuff here. This is what we do when we create an online course. This is the kind of stuff that we build in the background. This is learner value optimization. So what this essentially means is, if I can point this, you may not be able to see the thing. So offer the core offer here. Now, the core offer is your online course. Where most organizations fail is they just go straight to offering the online course. It's like in relationships. It's like going up to someone and say, will you marry me? You know, it's weird for a start if you would say that to someone. And the person that says yes to you for the first time, you probably don't want to marry them either. You know, it's a strange kind of thing. So you don't go into a relationship like that with human beings. So why would you do it online? So what we do when we create stuff is we think about this path that someone goes through. I'm going to introduce a couple of terms that may be new to you. One is called Tripwire. One is called a profit maximizer you may have heard of. I'll take you through each of these and how they work. This is what it looks like built out. So one of the things that we actually do is boffin stuff again. I'm not a technologist, I'm a marketer, but we test all of our messaging to all of our customers. So we're constantly testing. You'll see all these little things down here. These are sequences of communications to customers that we test. We test our open rates for them. We use multimodal, so sometimes it might be an SMS, sometimes it might be an email, sometimes it might be a thing in the mail, sometimes it might be a telephone call. We're constantly testing these to see which are the ones that get people most excited, where we get the most conversions from it as well. The great thing about when you start building stuff, and I don't know how many people have used kind of CRM systems. Okay, so you'll recognize whether you're using something like this, which is, say, built in we use a thing called Infusionsoft, but you can basically build it in anything. You're building automated marketing. So then what that allows you to do is a lot of the kind of lower level tasks within marketing, you shouldn't be giving your team the time to have to do that. They should be doing the higher quality tasks of teaching and then actually getting on the phone and actually trying to follow up with people. So I'm going to take you through the kind of all that mapping stuff and just take you through what this is just now. And you can, if you have a core offer just now, let's say I have a course in, I like Pinot Noir wine. It's a nice type of wine. So if I am the Institute of Wine and I have a course in Pinot Noir and it's a $500 course, if I just go straight to someone and try and sell them on my $500 course, my conversion rate will be anywhere between 0.1% to 1%. That's what it is. So you're leaving 99% of people who are not going to buy your thing. So if I'm creating an online course, the first thing I'm thinking about is my lead source. Where is the traffic coming from for this? So we talk about temperatures in lead source. The way that you talk to your customer or your prospect is going to be different depending on how they're coming to you. The person that comes to you from a cold source, well, let's say a Facebook ad. If you do Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, you're going to speak to that person in a very different way to someone that is maybe an existing customer or someone that's coming through is being referred to you by a partner institution. So the first thing you've always got to think about is what is the temperature of this person coming in? Once you identify the temperature of that person, you can then start to talk to that person in a way that feels more natural to them. So we think about lots of different kind of lead sources. We then create lots of these. And so let's go back to an example of the Pinot Noir course. If I was selling a course on Pinot Noir, an online course, I would create what we call a lead magnet. Now, some of you may already be doing this. So you may already have essentially a free thing. Usually they're maybe a free guide. It might be a free infographic. Free quizzes work really well. When I saw the other day, which historical character are you more like? That's a classic quiz. I get your email address. You see them on BuzzFeed all the time. These are lead magnets. That's what's happening. I am giving you someone's giving me their email address in exchange for something valuable. Where most people get this bit wrong is they don't test multiple lead magnets. So anytime I would be creating a course, I'm thinking, well, what's the free thing I can give away? If I'm creating that Pinot course, I'm thinking about, well, can I give away an infographic of the 5 things you want to test in Pinot Noir wine? Things, the color of the wine, the taste, the smell of the wine, something very quick that can be consumed very quickly. If you're doing, let's say, a history course and you're offering a course in Renaissance history, it could be the 5 leading Renaissance artists you need to know about, something very quick that they can consume. Now, this is what people usually get wrong. They don't test this in multiple ways. They'll put up one thing like that and then they won't test it. We have multiple versions of all of these. We're testing them. We're testing the color of the button. We're testing the words on it. We're testing whether we put our branding at the top or we don't. We're testing the images. We're testing things like, you'll notice we'll often put the person, you'll have a person looking at the button, because that will increase our conversion rates by a couple of points. So you're always testing to try and get people into your funnel at the start. Once you've done that, these are kind of lead magnets that we'll often deliver, like free infographics, free worksheets. So stuff that you're creating already in your course, you can probably strip something out of that and think, that would be really great as an infographic. That would be really great as like a checklist. People love checklists because it makes them think that doing stuff is really easy. All they have to do is follow a checklist. So if you want, one of the quickest lead magnets to create is a checklist. Then this is what other people don't usually do. They'll send them to a thank you page. Thank you for signing up for our free guide on Pinot wine. What have you just done there? You've failed at getting the opportunity to actually sell someone something. So in our industry, in my part of the business, we call these, in America they call them tripwires. I don't like that expression for various reasons. But the more common term is self-liquidating offer, because when I give something for free, someone puts their name and email address in, I get that. I will immediately make them an offer. And that offer will be something like a low-cost offer. It will be a $5 thing or a $10 thing. The reason I make that offer, 2 reasons. One is I want to qualify you as a buyer. Because if I can sell you once, I'm 10 times more likely to sell you again. So the first thing, if we talk about warmth of traffic, if I can immediately work out that you're a buyer and you're interested, that you're willing to trust me enough to give me your credit card to buy this thing, you immediately go faster. Your lights start happening here and you start getting offered more things. So that's the first reason we do that. We do that. And the other reason is, the reason it's called a self-liquidating offer. How many people do Facebook ads for their institutions, or they do online advertising in some way? Okay. So one of the things you're always thinking about in online advertising is your ROI. If I spend $10 on advertising, how much am I going to get back? So the reason that you do this is because it liquidates the cost of your ad spend. So that means if I can do enough of these, I can send people to this, they buy this low-cost thing, suddenly everything I make from that point is profit. It's all profit. I've basically liquidated the cost of my advertising revenues. So this allows you to do really cool things after that. So we've offered this thing. And for us, what we'll often do, talking about splintering your offer, if you have a course on Pinot Noir, you might do something about how to tell, you might do a splinter offer, like what the 5 top areas for growing Pinot Noir. And you might strip that out as a little mini course within what you're offering, or a little free guide or an ebook. That's a classic Tripwire. You've probably seen, I was leaving home this morning, there was something in the mail there. We'll clean marks on your chair for £10. What is that? It's a tripwire. It's a self-liquidating offer. It's so that they can get into your house, clean the thing, and then say to you, your curtains are looking like they need cleaned as well. Have you ever done a Groupon offer? Have you ever bought anything on Groupon? That's a self-liquidating offer, you just see. So, then as soon as they buy that, we're not finished with them. And this is all happening in minutes, remember. As soon as they do that, we immediately offer them the core offer. We offer them the main course. In our case, it might be a $500 online course. And you'll have a video from the teacher telling them what the course is. We test different types of pages. We'll test things called video sales letters, VSLs, which are just, there's nothing on the page apart from a video. The reason we do that is because we can then educate the customer about what the product is before they see the buy button, and they can make the decision then. We'll test long-form sales letter, which they're really ugly, and as a designer, designers hate them, but they actually work. So we make them the core offer. We're then still not finished with them. We then do the profit maximizers. So let's say someone buys the Tripwire, but they don't buy the online course. We have sequences, and if we just go back to this one here. So they buy the Tripwire, but they don't buy the core offer, the online course. We immediately have an automated follow-up sequence that starts getting them to buy the core course again. So everything we do is automated. There's tags being applied. You're being cookied at every single point. If this stuff sounds like weird and a bit icky, this is what all the leading marketers are doing. If you've ever got something for nothing, if you're on Facebook, you're giving your data away because you're not paying for it. This is the world that we're living in. So finally we offer up kind of profit maximizers, and these could be our certificate programs. They might be a summer school. If you're offering maybe a course where they come to London to learn English, it might be insurance. You might have travel insurance as part of it. There's a whole bunch. You can offer continuity programs. If I did my online Pinot course, maybe I want a monthly newsletter about which Pinots are the best to buy. This is kind of what we're doing. And I bear in mind, I'm speaking to a lot of people here. You've been in education a long time, so you know how traditional enrollment and admissions work. But when it comes to selling online courses, there's differences here that are going on. It's probably much more aggressive than you would normally be used to by selling traditional university places. And then I think the final thing is, so what we're doing just now is we're basically coming out, working with our first partners here. One of the reasons I've come back here to the UK is to work with ICMP, who's a Study UK member, and we're going to be offering, in this case, music courses with that. But what we've really been doing behind this is we've really been building a team of people who are very good at the technology, very good at the content, instructional design side of things. I can't really speak to that myself as another member of the team that does that, and very good at how you build these things out. Because in the UK, there is a skills gap for this stuff just now. In America, I can go and find instructional designers, and it's actually much easier. I can find marketers that really understand this stuff. In the UK, unfortunately, there's a bit of a gap in the market there just now. So what we're doing is we're working with great content creators, whether they're specialist providers doing online hairdressing, skills courses, or more formal providers as well. So that's it. That's your. I've given you something tactical as well. So even if you're selling an online course, go away just now. Think about it. What is the lead magnet? What is the thing you can give away for free to get people's email addresses, to get them interested in this online course? What is the self-liquidating offer? What is the thing you can strip out of that and make it offer? And also, what is your profit maximizer? Once they've bought your online course, can they add to that so you can increase your lifetime value of your customer? That's it. So, yeah. So I think we're going to do some questions for about.
What time is it end?
20 minutes? Yeah, about 20 minutes. So just put your hand up, say which organisation you're from, and fire away.
Samuel from Student Marketing. Great presentation, both of you. I have a question for James. How much effort and time it takes to thought it through? So you have an online course, and then you need to get to some results. I mean in shape and form that you deliver this marketing campaign, how difficult is to thought it through? Because it's quite a sophisticated thing, depending on what kind of online course it is. It's all bespoke, I assume. So is it 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years?
Yeah. So everything we've built with templatized it. The next on. Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
Everything we've built, we've templatized it. So it means that if you come in as a provider, as an education provider, we have been testing all of these different campaigns, and then it's essentially we're able to duplicate them very rapidly. Actually, the thing that doesn't take so much of the time, like I'm showing you, like inner workings of how some of these systems work, that's actually not the thing that takes the most time. The thing that usually takes the most time is for when we sit down with the institution or the provider and talk to them about their customers, talking to about what is the course, how does that make that person, how does that person feel just now when they haven't gone on the course, and then how will they feel once they've gone on the course? What will that person, what will that person's average day be like before they've done the course and then after they've done the course? Because what we're doing from here, I mean, all this stuff, this is very tactical things I'm showing you, but what doesn't change is this human psychology. So once I understand the psychology of the customer, in this case, I know that allows me to talk about what the copy needs to be. So I'll give you an example. For one of these, we created it in about 14 hours, one of these. So they already had an existing course. All we did with them is we took what they had, stripped out the splintered the different offers, created the pages, created the auto upsells, built the campaigns, built the pages in under 24 hours.
Sounds like a long day.
That's a long day. Yeah. But it shouldn't have to be, even if just at the first thing, I mean, we're showing you kind of high levels of sophistication. Even if you don't already have that, you've probably got a list of people that have been interested in your online course but haven't purchased it. It'll probably be about 95% of the people who haven't purchased the course. Splinter out the offer. Find something within that. Make it offer it as a low-cost purchase. Because once they're a buyer, then it's so much easier to sell to them because they're going to trust you. Because you've hopefully, I mean, it goes back to the core thing of marketing. You've got to make good stuff. Because if it's rubbish, you're not going to get the sales. You're not going to get the repeat sales. But if you're making great courses, then just give them a little bit. Show results in advance. And then you'll get the sales from it.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm actually from EY, so I've not got the same background as everybody here. So it's probably more just trying to get a grasp of everything. But from what I've seen personally, and I've done a few online courses as well myself, the online courses for alternative providers tend to be an add-on, a bolt-on to what they're providing actually for the students already. How can they go about through advertising and actually what they're offering, changing it from a bolt-on into an actual course where they can charge the £3,000 or the £6,000 that they can do for the normal students?
Shall I take a bit of that? Okay. So obviously FutureLearn's a bit peculiar in that our courses are free. But that's fine because there are lots of places, lots of universities, lots of other institutions that are delivering courses that are paid for. So I see FutureLearn as a stepping stone. So actually, in a weird way, we're one of the tripwires in this scenario. Because say you're a university and let's imagine that you're thinking we want to recruit MA students. We're going to really max out here in terms of our, what's the last bit called? The profit maximisation. Profit maximisation. We're going straight from zero to profit maximisation. What are the steps in between here, right? It's entirely possible that you're going to want to create a course, even though it seems like a gargantuan effort at the time, to lure those people, because you're having potentially a completely new relationship with a bunch of people who don't necessarily know your brand. So I'm going to give you a real example, right? When we started, right back at the beginning, within a month or two, so all of our courses, we never told a single university which course to make. They decided for themselves. That meant our portfolio of courses was completely random and emergent, right? In no way designed. and we had 2 dentistry courses within a month. And I started to panic. I was like, oh my goodness, what if everyone just chooses to make dentistry courses? And then FutureLearn just becomes sort of synonymous with the place you go for dentistry, which didn't happen, thankfully. But we didn't realise that Birmingham had created a Tripwire, right? They created a course called Improve Your Dental Imaging. Did anyone do that course? No. It's a great course. And it turns out it's a super specific niche aimed at a global audience of dentists who are improving their use of cameras in the practice of dentistry. They recruited, I think, 3 people from that course directly onto their MA, which completely covered the costs of doing the course. And they've run it several times since, and every single time that's worked. Now, the thing is, that course was no bolt-on. That was a genuine 6-week, really lavish affair. But it really helped people understand that Birmingham had something to say about dentistry. They had expertise. They were putting their head above the parapet very early on, saying, we're offering something in a new space here. They had a sort of almost like, in the dentistry world, a bit of a first mover advantage. So I think what people should be weighing up is, and I can't reiterate this enough with what James was saying, is if you think you're making a digital online thing in a terrible hurry to give a kind of a snifter, a sense of some brilliant thing that you're hiding, it's not going to work, okay? The thing that you have to give also has to be brilliant. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be delightful, it has to have high utility, and it has to have a direct relationship with that learner. And actually, that can take a bit of time working out what the hell that is, as James was just saying. So yeah, I think the stepping stones approach is the one that we're seeing working well at FutureLearn.
As a students signing up for Stanford philosophy lectures, etc., etc. We need to be careful that when people do things for free, we don't treat them as if they're doing it for free. Just because something's free doesn't mean that they won't complain if it's not very good. I'm just wondering about how you've approached quality assurance. You know, they're not accredited courses, they don't have that kind of overarching anxiety about quality assurance that, you know, that the core higher education sector might have about, you know, doing things correctly, but there's still a customer relationship in terms of quality assurance. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously quality assurance in this world means like a number of things all at the same time. It can mean the quality of the academic rigour in the course. It can mean the quality of the experience on the platform. It can mean the quality of the interactions with other learners. And it can mean the quality of the course design. Now, what we decided was, bearing in mind that we were working with universities who were extremely used to being quality assured, that we would leave the academic quality assurance to them. Now, we actually had a debate at the beginning about whether to create a cross-peer network of quality assurance, okay? I can't even believe I'm telling you this. But we thought about the idea that you would make a course and then another of your esteemed institutions would quality assure that course. Having tested that idea a little bit, we decided that in the short term it seems completely and utterly unworkable. And I think in many ways we had to trust that those institutions wouldn't diminish their own brands and their own reputations, which seems like it's like the number one thing to hold on to. So we decided academic assurance would be done by universities. We did decide, though, that in terms of quality assurance of, you know, the video production, the experience, the quality of communications, that we would have a quality assurance team. So we actually have a team of about 10 people who work with all of our partners. And as difficult as this is to say, we push back. You know, if a course isn't looking good enough, if it isn't being clear enough, if it's confusing, if the videos are too long, even if, and as mad as it sounds, like it has sort of references to material that we're slightly doubtful about, we push back. And occasionally, we've said to universities, we're not putting that on until it's sorted. So we did realise, again, this might be to do with our BBC background, that if we didn't put that quality assurance in our team, we could destroy ourselves within months. And actually we would be playing into the whole hype problem that I was describing earlier, of people looking at us and going, yeah, it is free and it's rubbish, just like we said it would be, exactly as you've described. Actually, I think people are sort of going, it's free, it's really high quality, I don't get how that's possible, which is actually a better question to ask because there's a real conundrum right in there. But, that's what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we do it in slightly different ways. I know with your authors, when you work with an institution, the authors of the courses will come in and they'll do workshops.
Yep.
So you do it on a workshop basis. We do it slightly different because a lot of our teachers are in other parts of the world. So we actually have a meta course. It's a course on how to create a course. And it teaches also things. I mean, many of these people are very good teachers already. That's not what we're having to do to teach them. But they're used to teaching in a certain way, teaching like an hour-long tutorial. That doesn't work for online. We need someone that can teach in shorter bite-sized chunks. We also need someone that understands how to deliver on camera, which is a skill. It's a skill you learn, but so we have to do a certain amount of media training with someone. I mean, one of our teachers actually filmed his entire course at home himself on his little webcam on his computer, just so he could get comfortable in front of a camera. So when he came into our studios, he could hit it really. So there's lots of things around online that just if people just think that they can take purely the knowledge of creating brick and mortar courses and doing it online, it will fail. So that's why the expertise, people like Justin and his team, what they're really, really good at is showing what those things are that you have to understand in terms of how you structure your courses, instructional design, how you deliver on, and then actually how you do the ongoing tutoring process. And we have different ways of doing it as well. Our tutors do weekly video feedback, and your tutors do it in a slightly different way. So yeah, these are things you just have to keep in mind when you're creating online courses.
Hello back there.
Thank you. My question is about the other end. When you've completed an online course, how does the quality of what's been delivered in terms of maybe a certificate or something resonate with the rest of the world, where I can buy a degree, I can buy a doctorate, I could probably get myself a driving license without sitting in a car? How do you then show that the development of the student and the learning process has been as good as something that perhaps erroneously we devolve more kind of credibility to because it's come from a bricks and mortar place?
Well, I'll give us our perspective. So I think this is one of the biggest questions facing education at all, not just online education. And it really goes back to one of the questions that was asked in a previous talk, is what is assessment for? So we think about there being 3 groups of learners on FutureLearn. We think about there being what we call the young. So we're thinking of sort of 16 to 24, who many of which will be in some form of education already. We think about professional learners, and we think about what we call the general interest learner. And each of those have entirely different motivations for learning. Because they have entirely different motivations, weirdly enough, the assessment and the sort of, if you like, the marker, the record of learning is fulfilling a different task. And it has to match that motivation in that person's life. So, for example, if I want to learn about the literature of English country houses, okay, it's probably not because I want to impress my employer. So actually, it's probably therefore okay to just have a record of learning that I'm proud of and that maybe I can demonstrate to my family and friends. On the other hand, if I am a professional working in law and I've got to demonstrate that I did X amount of CPD, which if anyone knows the law profession, it's almost laughable how CPD works in the law profession, I need to have some factual representation of hours spent doing something that was believed to be useful for my profession. A student applying for going through the UCAS process might need something entirely different again to try and differentiate themselves from the hordes of other learners that there are, and so on and so forth. Right now, what I think we've started to realise is there's a total fragmentation of understood value about learning and education and the kind of accreditation objects that come out of it. And what we have to do at FutureLearn is be flexible enough that we can deliver different forms of that marker of accreditation to those individuals. So what we just did very recently is we have a thing called a statement of participation, which all it basically says is, I did this course. I could have been terrible at it, but I did this course. So that's all it is a marker of. And what we started to do is make those shareable, so you can share that on your LinkedIn profile and you can share it on Facebook and so on. And we've only been doing this a few months. And I don't know if you've seen that Coursera, again, was slightly ahead of the game, and they've been doing this for a little while. But I think what's going to start to happen, certainly in the professional world, is that it's going to be more like a badging system where you'll have demonstrators of lifelong learning. And this is the absolutely terrible thing to say to this group here. But your degree will become less and less relevant, because what it will tell the employer is what you did a while ago, what you did when you were younger. But what did you do last year? And what did you do the year before? And what did you do just before this interview to demonstrate your willingness and your enthusiasm? Well, that's when you turn to FutureLearn and Coursera to have a marker that you participated in or you did this thing. So I think we've all just got to pay an enormous attention to the user need here. And the one thing that I personally am really guarded against is simulating the assessment models that are in higher education and FE at the moment, because I don't think they're fit for purpose in the particular online world that we're talking about. So, for example, I wouldn't be racing towards trying to mimic the online degree on FutureLearn. I don't think that's what it's about. I hope that gives you at least some flavour.
Yeah, our courses, you get it's a badging system using Mozilla Badges system. We use I think we're using a Credly just now, but there's lots of Credly. There's lots of great providers out there where you can then share that on your LinkedIn profile. I suppose that the thing I've picked up more is that I've got a number of friends that worked at things like LinkedIn and Google and stuff, and the brand, what the brand stands for. I mean, if your institution, if it stands for something, that stamp is going to stand for a certain kind of quality. So I think the big rise you're going to start seeing it, and Justin, I know his team are involved in this as well, is the rise of the brands teaching, being involved in education. So an example of this, who would I rather have my computer sciences qualification from? Would I rather have it from Google, or would I rather have it from a third-rate university in Midwest America? Who would you rather have it from? Who would I rather have my music thing from? Would I rather have it from Marshall guitar amps, if I'm a shred rock guitar player, or would I rather have it from a college that's, kind of connected with music, but it is not that much? So I think you're going to start seeing the rise of the brands, because brands, I was speaking to a very well-known publishing company, like celebrity-style publishing company the other day, and that's what they're now looking at. They're looking at how they can make these YouTube stars into brands, into things that you can actually have stamped. Because in some of those worlds, those YouTube stars have more credibility than traditional institutions. So we're just starting to see there's a change going on. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's definitely going to see the rise of the brands.
Thank you, John Sanders. I don't know if it's a dirty question, but FutureLearn, you're not selling your courses. How do you monetize your offering?
Okay, yeah. So the business model at the moment is the selling of statements of participation. So I would say roughly, just get the numbers right, 1% of people that actually start a course end up buying a statement of participation. And statements of participation are £34. And different kinds of courses generate, so although that 1% is a total average, some courses it's quite a lot higher, some a bit less. So that's our primary business model. So to make that work, we need a lot of learners. We need to be an absolutely mass market proposition. To make that work, we need a huge number of courses. And it turns out to make that work, we can't rely on, it turns out, a small number of higher education institutions to make them, because they'd have to make too many, and they don't want to. So we have to massively expand our partnership. And one of the things that we're doing at the moment is expanding our partnership. We're bringing in organisations that we call specialist organisations. It relates to what James was talking about, brands. But it's organisations that have a propensity to teach and learn. They have that capacity. In order that they can come and diversify the portfolio, so we've got a much wider range of courses. We've got more courses which attract more learners, which sell more statements of participation, which gets our sort of default, if you like, bottom line increasing. I think what we'll be exploring next is the kind of, it goes to the question about accreditation, which is if there's a statement of participation at £34, what's the kind of mid-stakes assessment that might be priced at £70, where it's much more identifiably you, and there's an assessment that says, actually, not only did I do the course, but I did it really well. And then is there another thing that's to do with sort of formal exams that's, for example, where you might do 4 courses, and then you cut, like I don't know if you know the Coursera specialisation, but you might do 4 courses, and then you cap it with a physical assessment and an exam where you might even have to construct something or do something, and that be another price point again. So effectively what we're doing is not racing towards this, but quite slowly manoeuvring ourselves towards a range of services that meet the needs of learners and what they want in terms of accreditation, that price points that seem viable at a mass level. Behind the scenes, we're building up a business-to-business model that sort of looks at using the platform for corporations who want to train their staff and so on. So we're sort of diversifying, but we're keeping those worlds quite separate.